Hello, I'm Rinon Asanuma from Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology. Today I'll introduce my agent AaNanteLucky for the ANAC 2026 ANL League. I would like to start with the origin of the name. Because this is the ANL League, I wanted the agent name to include ANL. AaNante comes from a Japanese expression, roughly meaning, oh, what's up? I also consider myself a very lucky person, so I added lucky at the end. However, reaching the finals was not just luck. From here, I will explain the design choices behind this agent. I consider that there are two major objectives in this competition. The first is to make my own utility function difficult for the opponent to infer. The second is to reach an agreement with as high utility as possible for my agent. However, these two objectives often create a trade-off. If I want a high utility agreement, I naturally wanted to propose offers that are good for me. But if I keep doing that, the opponent can infer which offer or issue barriers I prefer. On the other hand, if I diversify too much to hide my preference, I may fail to push the offers I actually want, and my final utility may decrease. So, I made the priority explicit in this agent. The most important goal is to reach a high utility agreement for myself. Of course, I also included mechanisms to conceal my own utility function. However, the concealment is done only as much as possible while maintaining high utility. In short, the design philosophy is high utility first, privacy second. Next, I will explain how this idea is implemented. The agent consists of three main models. First, it estimates the opponent's utility. Second, it uses that estimated to generate and select offers. Finally, it decides whether to accept or reject an offer from the opponent. I will explain these three modules in order. First, I will explain opponent modeling. The basic idea is frequency-based estimation. The agent combines the hard-headed frequency model and the Smith frequency model. In the early stage, the number of observed offers is too small for frequency alone to be reliable. Therefore, the agent also uses a weak prior. An offer that is good for me may be somewhat bad for the opponent. As more offers are observed, the estimation becomes more frequency-based. Next is the offering strategy. The agent concedes gradually over time. However, it is very tough in the early stage. First, it keeps only candidates that are sufficiently good for my own utility. Then, among those candidates, it selects an offer that is also likely to be good for the opponent. So the order is important. Protect my utility first, then consider the opponent within that range. The agent also tries to conceal its own preference. For example, it avoids repeating the exact same offer many times. It also rotates among several candidates that have almost the same utility for me. This makes it harder for the opponent to conclude which offer is my absolute favorite. However, this concealment is mild. It is designed not to sacrifice too much of my own utility. The acceptance strategy follows the same philosophy. In the early stage, the acceptance threshold is very high. As time passes, the threshold gradually decreases. However, the agent basically does not accept offers below the reservation value. Near the deadline, it becomes more flexible by checking the opponent's recent behavior patterns. To summarize, the most important design goal of this agent is high utility agreement. To achieve that, it estimates the opponent's utility and uses that estimate to choose more acceptable offers. At the same time, it includes mild preference concealment to reduce information leakage. So the key concept is high utility first, privacy second. This is the central idea behind AaNanteLucky. Thank you for listening.